Hello and welcome to JudgeCast. This is episode 353. I'm one of your hosts, Bryan, and I'm joined this evening, afternoon, morning drive to work by the one and only Charles Feather.
Hello, hello.
And the one and only Marcos Sanchez.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Yes, and this joyful episode on this wonderful Tuesday evening where we're all just so excited to be here, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite format, Commander.
Modern?
Right?
Oh.
I could have swore that was draft, but okay.
Nope. Too bad. Your favorite
modern.
format's now Commander, for this episode at least. You can go back to liking draft. You can go back to liking draft at 11 p.m. All right.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yep. All right. So, if we're still recording, you can be just right in the middle of the episode. I hate Commander and I love draft. So, Commander has become a much bigger part of Magic since judge levels were created as a thing, right? Traditionally, level 1 judges have been defined as needing to know standard mechanics, and the jar. Okay, and just F&M, standard at F&M. However, more and more, Commander is becoming a thing, and we've already reached past the tipping point, and as a result, there is much more of a demand on judges' rules knowledge and being able to answer the weird questions. Commander is, as a format, it is both simpler and more complicated than other formats and other events, and not necessarily something that the level structure is set up to handle.
Not even a little bit.
So there's a lot of nuance and fussiness to Commander, so it is time that we, if there's one podcast that knows nuance and fussiness, it's JudgeCast.
Boy, howdy.
Some of us represent more of those words than others, but right. Sure.
I'm definitely Lord Fussy. So, first, before we get started, just a quick blurb. Charles, what's your personal involvement with Commander?
I dabble in it with my pinky toe. I have somewhere around, 15 or so decks that vary in... Look around you, bud. Read the room.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people with a lot more decks than I have.
Sure, but you're at least waist deep.
I'm at least, okay, my feet are wet. I'm standing in the edge of the surf. My feet are wet. I enjoy Commander as a purely social and casual interaction. I do not enjoy the cEDH thing, which we'll be talking about, I'm sure, at some point in time tonight. And for the most part, I just look at it as a way to pass the time in between other events, or occasionally as an all-day or all-weekend thing where I'm more digging the vibe than I am worrying about who's winning.
Okay. Marcos?
So I came back to Magic in 2013, and after playing some very, very dumb casual decks, learned about Commander, and that was largely how I played for like the first year or so that I was back, before I got into competitive play and all that kind of stuff. And then my Commander group imploded like most of them do because of nuclear escalation and board wipe Commander decks and really just bad play group style stuff. But lately, my involvement with Commander has largely been in the cEDH tournament scene. In fact, this weekend, I'm going to be head judging the largest cEDH TEDH event ever.
Yeah, you are.
Having head judged the previous largest cEDH TEDH event ever. So that is largely where my Commander flag is planted. I don't play any cEDH or Commander really at all lately. Like, I've had some ideas for decks lately, but I just don't have a play group to regularly play with. I'm starting to find some people nearby who I might want to again, but it's not like a regular thing for me to play.
All right. So I used to run a casual multiplayer group. When I moved down here to Florida, I just found a group, and we just played casual 60-card constructed 4-player pods in Go. And then around 2008, 2009, someone came and was like, hey, want to play this thing called Commander? And it caught on like wildfire and basically killed my favorite format. Okay, Everyone built Commander decks, and sure, we switched over to it. It was fun. We were playing to hang out, To me, it's a very beer and peanuts format. I've played it almost exclusively ever since. So the last 17 years, that is almost exclusively what I play. I run Command Fest for cool stuff, and I very much dislike competitive EDH tournaments. cEDH is a bracket 5 format. Cool. Tournaments with stakes. So I'm very, very different at Marcos, and Charles gets to be right in the middle. So
Yeah.
if you're looking, if your Goldilocks coming up, my cEDH is too hot, Marcos's is too cold, and I guess Charles's is just right.
Winning.
Which Charles says he didn't like it either, so winning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right. So the first thing that we want to talk about, Commander, is does it fit cleanly into judge levels?
No.
Not
It really
even a
doesn't.
little bit.
Not even a little bit. Why not?
I saw an interesting conversation about this on Facebook the other day, and I'm just going to dive in for 2 seconds about this. We talk about what new judges, what level ones need to know, what rules knowledge they have to not only pass the test, but to be active in their communities. And unfortunately, the two things have started to stray from one another a little bit. Enabled to pass the rules test, you only have to have some limited knowledge of layers. Enabled to correctly judge and work a cEDH event, you have to know layers intimately. You really, really do.
Well, let's just say, just to answer EDH questions at your LGS, like if it's your local Discord or something like that, a lot of weird stuff comes up.
Sure. And these aren't interactions. And the other thing is, and this is all in the same kind of a ball of wax, is that we expect new L1s to be able to perform well in the standard format, but not so much have the deep knowledge of what happens in eternal formats. Or I don't know if it's quite deep knowledge, but you understand the basic point is that we want them to understand standard well, because standard is going to be the thing that they should be experiencing the most and should be judging the most. And that's where they're going to dip their toes in the water when they start doing competitive. We don't expect them to jump feet first into judging vintage. So what happens here is unfortunately, or fortunately, the card pool for Commander is eternal. It goes all the way back to Alpha. So there's a little bit of a difference in what a store might need and a store might want, and what we have an expectation that an L1 should be currently as we define them.
It's very possible for an L1 to have all mechanics in standard in their head.
Sure.
It is not possible for an L1 or even an L5 to have all mechanics in Commander in their head.
Absolutely.
All right, quick. What's the difference between flanking and Bushido? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, or fading and vanishing. Like, there is a difference. Which one is which? Like, the other thing also with Commander players in general, and like, it's kind of built into the format, right? You have this whole element of Commander, which is expressiveness. You want to express yourself through your deck, whether it's in card art or card choices. But a lot of Commander players love building decks that make you go, wait, I'm sorry, what? Like my old play group, we used to joke around about how often we would call the old Wizards customer support line for rules questions when we were first starting, because of just all these weird things that kind of came up. But some people will take that weird thing that comes up occasionally on Commander Night and go, I'm going to build a deck around breaking everybody's brains a little bit. And like some Commander players just love the look of confusion on people's faces, or the Judge Breaker Commander decks that when they call you over, they make you go, really? You're going to ask me Sway the Stars? Okay, let's talk then, you know?
Another thing is that why it doesn't fit into levels cleanly is because one of the things that we teach people is how to run the event in the Wizard software, in Companion, in Event Link, what all that happens. And can you run a commander tournament in Companion? Like an actual... Now, I'm not talking about like a player list event.
An honest to goodness 4-player pod commander event is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Where you have multiple pods.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Does the software support that? No.
No.
So in order to do a tournament as a judge, the tools that you were given and the tools that we teach you how to use just don't work.
Yep. You have to rely on third-party software or just, your own note cards and scratch paper type of math and figure it out, which is not ideal and not what a level 1 should be concerned about.
And another thing that we're going to get into at some point in time here is policy. And even the jar doesn't really do well with multiplayer commander magic from a rules enforcement and penalty perspective. It just doesn't handle it in a clean way.
The jar, I think, does a pretty decent job. Because the jar is just do whatever makes sense, more or less.
Yeah.
Right?
When you have to start worrying about tiebreakers or how do you adjudicate something when there's anything of real value on the line, that's more where it starts to fall apart for sure.
Right.
And another aspect is when we sit down to play Standard, if Charles and I sit down to play Standard,
Yep.
we are playing by we have similar motivations. If we're playing in an F&M, if we show up, okay, I am trying to defeat Charles is trying to defeat me. We're not necessarily concerned if anyone's having a good time.
Must crush April.
Right? Sure. And whatever's not, if it's not banned, it's legit. And if you want to play VV Cauldron, is it Cauldron until, everyone cries and leaves the score?
Everybody else is.
Cool. Sure. 57% of, look to your left, look to your right. They're playing, is it Cauldron? Anyway, there is a set expectation when you're playing Standard. There is a set expectation when you're playing Modern. And when you sit down to play EDH, there is not a set expectation. People can be coming into that event with wildly different things. And as a result, you are expected to customer service a lot differently, or potentially you're going to deal with a lot of different complaints that you don't necessarily get at draft or Standard nights.
So there are some differences.
Yeah.
But at the very least, recently, it does show some potential signs. So depending on when you're listening to this, when it's right after we release this or many years down the road, very recently, as of the recording of this episode, is when Wizards kind of assumed control over Commander as a format, and managing the rules, and the bracket system is a relatively new, within the last year sort of introduced feature. So the whole concept of Wizards taking on the ability to manage this format, because beforehand it was managed by, funny enough, judges and by an independent council of people who decided this is something we really care about. This is something that we think is a lot of fun, and we're going to manage it because we created it. And so we feel like we have a good idea of how this should be run. And they did for a while until the internet happened. And we all know what happens when the internet gets involved.
Yeah, long story short, people were terrible, and and Wizards stepped in after threats were made. And that's pretty much all we need to say about that, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over some of the rules of Commander. Odds are very good that if you have found this podcast, you already know what we're going to say. But we're going to do it anyway because having a judge-based, rules-based podcast talking about Commander and we don't talk about the rules, it upsets my completionist brain. Then we're going to talk about Rule 0. We're going to talk about implementing and harnessing brackets, and then we're going to be talking about logistics around Commander tournaments, cEDH and tEDH, and even just casual Friday night. We'll talk a little bit about proxies and maybe how to deal with house rules, pub stompers, that kind of stuff. All right, so you want to plow through these rules?
Yeah, this shouldn't need to take a lot of time, but let's talk about the rules. One of the ones I love that is different about Commander is the deck construction is completely different from basically any other format that you have to worry about as a judge. So, Commander is a 100 card singleton format. Each deck has a legendary creature or artifact that has power and toughness printed on it. That's a relatively new change as of this recording. So either your commander's a legendary creature or an artifact that has a power and toughness printed on it, like a spacecraft
Legendary
or
artifact.
a vehicle. Legendary artifact, yes. And some cards can state that they can be your commander, like some planeswalkers from the commander decks.
Yeah. And funny enough, there's a legendary vehicle with power and toughness that's printed on it that says it can be your commander.
Yeah,
Sure
that
guy?
was before they realized this was probably a good idea. Yeah, sure, guy. Yeah, so
All right.
100 card singleton, so no duplicates. The only thing that you can have multiple copies of in your commander deck are basic lands. That's it. Everything else has to be a one of.
All right. So there are no sideboards in Commander. That was a rule that they added to the CR. It was on one of the Commander web pages for a decade. There are no wish boards. We had a little conversation yesterday about, wow, what would Commander look like if they allowed wish boards? And I think we kind of all quickly came to the conclusion that it would just be kind of boring because having access to those 15 cards would just kind of make games feel a little more tutory and a little more samey.
Yeah, that's a big problem with Commander in general is, it's a 100 card singleton. So a part of the design of the game is you want each game to feel unique and slightly different, not like you're running back the same 3-card combo like you get in other formats. So why would you make it easier to run the same cards all the time, right?
Yep. Okay. And while it's a 100 card singleton format, you are allowed to have a 101st card in the form of a companion. When you add a companion, you get the extra deck building restriction that comes with the companion if you're going to use it as a companion.
Yeah, and note that this isn't partner. Partner is a whole different ball of wax. If you have 2 commanders that are partnered, you are still at the 100 card deck restriction. Basically, your library is 98 cards, and your 2 commanders round out to the 100 if they're partnered, if they each have partner. But companion is that weird exception to the exception. And whether or not your play group thinks companions are a bad idea, they are still accounted for in the rules. So lump it. And then
since you mentioned that,
yeah,
can we just dive into real quick a little bit more about partner and like what you can put in the command zone? Because I feel like that's a good time to bring it up at least.
Sure.
So I think so. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so you can have one legendary creature or legendary artifact with power and toughness printed on it that is your commander, a single one, unless you have a legendary creatures or multiple legendary creatures with the partner mechanic that says partner on it or partner with, and then it'll name a specific card. Or you can have friends forever, which is just partner but with a different flavor on it. Or you can choose a background and have a legendary enchantment in your command zone along with your legendary creature. Or you can choose a doctor's companion to put in the command zone along with your Doctor Who legendary commander doctor.
Yep. Yeah, specifically,
we're not
the
done yet,
Doctor's
Marcos.
companion. You can pair with, you can partner with another legendary creature as long as it is a Time Lord Doctor and has no other creature types. So no mist form ultimist shenanigans there.
Yeah,
Changeling anything.
And there are also Commander formats that are alternate formats within Commander. And while we're not going to dive into all of them, just for example, there's Pilot and there's Pendragon. Pendragon, your commander is in the command zone along with its legendary artifact equipment. So the command zone is where shenanigans happen.
Yeah.
Yep. Another thing about Commander is there is a separate ban list. And additionally, there is, as we mentioned, there's the bracket system that layers on top of that, which kind of provides goalposts. While the bracket system is not a ban list, It is a series of goalposts that help you identify the power level of your deck so that you can play similarly powered people, mortals, players.
Yeah, choose the
Folks.
right experience for you.
Okay, so all that is dealing with deck construction. Okay. Now, we didn't actually talk about the color identity. We've got that in the rules difference section, but that really ties into deck construction, though.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that before we move into rules. Actually playing the game, your commander has a color identity. What is color identity?
The color identity is based upon the mana cost of the creature or item and the colors that appear in mana symbols in the text box.
Okay.
So
Also,
if you have like a creature that's 1 and a white, and then you have in the text box a hybrid demure symbol of blue and black, the color identity of that creature is white, blue, and black.
Yep. So you don't take into account any reminder text. So there's one mechanic. What's that white? What am I blanking on?
Extort.
It's the extort that has a white-black hybrid mana symbol in its reminder text.
Right.
Doesn't count. Also, for color identity, you are allowed to look on the back side of the card, both sides of the card, and you are allowed to look at any alternative characteristics like adventure cards to get the sum total of your color identity.
Confused yet,
then,
folks?
Yep. Yep. So basically, able to look at the whole card, front, back, sideways, look at all the mana symbols on there, all over the card, except the reminder text. That's your color identity. All right? And when you build your deck, every card in your deck is constrained to that color identity. All right? So anything that you build has to have those mana symbols and only those mana symbols if it has mana symbols. All right?
Yeah. Now,
Yep,
that does take into account things like, for example, or that does not take into account things like saying the word planes on a card. That is not a mana symbol. So you could get away with, for example, playing an Urborg in your mono white deck that just says all lands become swamps and doesn't actually have the black mana symbol on it other than reminder text. You can also do things like play off-color fetch lands. That, you could play a red-green fetch land in your mono-green deck because it doesn't have a red mana symbol on it. So color identity only cares about those mana symbols that physically appear on the card, not in reminder text, and that's it. But then everything has to stay in there. So in Charles's example of a white, blue, and black commander deck, I cannot put in, for example, a hybrid blue and green creature because the green is not part of the color identity of that commander.
All right, at the start of the game, when you shuffle up, you're going to take that commander of yours, take it out of the 100 cards, and you're going to stick it in the command zone, and you're going to present 99 cards. All right? You can cast your commander from that command zone. Like some illicit substances, the first time is free. And then after that, you must pay an additional 2 generic mana for each previous time you've cast it from the command zone. This is independent or separate, tracked separately for each commander. So if you have partners or doctor's companions or backgrounds or friends forever or whatever universes beyond cutesy way of combining this stuff comes up, those are tracked separately.
Note also that he said cast it from the command zone, that 2 extra. If for some reason your commander gets bounced to your hand and you cast it from your hand, it does not incur that 2 additional mana to cast charge. It's just cast at that point in time for its mana value, or whatever costs are required to be paid at the time for the casting of the card.
Yeah, and this is often referred to as the commander tax. If you ever hear that, that's your commander tax. So from there, commanders also have some special ways that they can go back into the command zone. So let's say I put my commander out onto the battlefield and I'm starting to do commandery things with it, and then some of my opponents at the table start to interact with it. So let's say Charles decides to bounce it back to my hand or put it 7th from the top in my library. Well, anytime a commander would be put into its owner's hand or library from anywhere, its owner may put it into the command zone instead as a replacement effect. So it would never end up in my hand. It would never end up shuffled into my library. I could just choose in that moment, instead of putting it wherever that spell instructs me to put it, hand or library, I say, nope, it's going to go right back to the command zone so I can have access to it later. However, if then, for example, Bryan decides to Doomblade my commander would actually be put into the graveyard. Or if he casts Path to Exile on it, it would be put into exile as normal. However, we then have a state-based action that will allow its owner to put it into the command zone from either exile or the graveyard. This just happens when other state-based actions are checked, and it allows you to do some shenanigan things that some commanders would like when they want to go to the graveyard or want to go into the exile zone for some reason or other.
Yep. Now, one thing, there are a few cards, and this does come up, that say something along the lines of all-in-one effect, destroy target creature, return that creature to the battlefield under your control. And that's all one effect. Okay? Now, in that particular case, because dealing with putting your commander into the command zone is a state-based action and happens in between in between the resolution of spells, it's checked. If the effect destroys it and then puts it onto the battlefield under someone else's control, there is no opportunity to check state-based actions. It is not one of the replacement effects. They are going to yoink your commander and you're going to be unhappy. Okay, this is probably one of the questions as a judge. If someone does this is going to be one of the things that people are going to be absolutely adamant doesn't work, because commander rules used to be that it wouldn't go to the graveyard. It would instead go to the command zone. It wouldn't go to exile. It would instead go to the command zone. That doesn't happen. They made the change so that commanders could get dies triggers, essentially. All right?
So we also have some things dealing with, how to win a game of Commander. What's important is the difference between this and 60 card formats is in Commander, we have a starting life total of 40 instead of 20. That 40 can quickly become an absurd number if somebody's running life gain or some kind of weird deck. You can and will still die if you take 10 poison damage. Again, remember, Commander's basically a multiplayer format, and there are people out there that are going to run all kinds of shenanigans, and somebody out there has a poison deck and they think they're pretty clever, and they're going to try and take you out. Sorry about that. You can also die from taking 21 points of combat damage from a single commander. Now note, that is combat damage, and that is from a single commander. So I'm in a 3-player commander pod with Bepril and Marcos, and Marcos is running some Voltron nonsense with his commander, and he swings at Bepril for 14 damage. What's that?
I said best kind of nonsense.
Best kind of nonsense. Swings at Bepril for 14 damage, and when he swings at Bepril for 14 damage with his commander, Bepril's going to knock down that 14 points, but he's also going to record 14 points from a commander damage from Marcos. Now, if I happen to do 7 commander damage to Bepril on that same turn, that doesn't mean that he took 21 points of combat damage from both of us and he's dead. No, he took 14 for Marcos and he took 7 for me. He is yet to take 21 from either of us. If it used to be that there was kind of like this joke about commander damage, being that, I think it was Sheldon who said, if you're going to try and take me out with commander damage, you're going to need to track that yourself or something like that. Because, a lot of people really don't try and win that way. But I think it's actually become more common in the last couple of years. I've seen a lot more in Voltron. So, y'all, if you use those digital life counters, and I see a lot of you do, make sure that you're tracking commander damage as it happens using the digital life counter. And they they all do it. The pads where you have the touch screen and you adjust the life counter up and down. If you hold it in a certain point of the screen, you can actually assign commander damage from one player for the amount, and it will automatically deduct the actual damage at the same time. So it's kind of clever, and please do that.
So last week, I lost a commander game. I had over 40,000 life. I was playing a slightly modified heads I win, tails you lose precon.
Slightly modified.
I got yeah, I made the mana base a little bit better.
Cool.
That's about it.
Yeah.
But I had lifelink, and so I had like 40,000 life, and I got by a flying commander for the combat damage.
Awesome. I love it.
It was very upsetting. Even with Croc's Thumb, I lost 9 consecutive rolls or flips of the dice or flips of the coin.
That's even better.
Yeah, it was a real nail biter, and I was just screaming like, "Come on, I've got 40,000! What the?" All right.
We said in our loops episode that can happen.
So there are other special formats out there with some special rules too. There's Brawl and Arch Enemy and Commander Draft, but nobody cares about those unless you do. And if you do, you'll know the rules or you'll find them. There's also Pilot.
Don't come to us. We don't want to talk about them.
Well, I mean, we've talked about Arch Enemy enough, I think, to point. But there's also Pilot, Pendragon, Pauper, other formats. People probably do care about those. I mean, you never know. Commander kind of lends itself to all these alternative play formats. I mean, who remembers French Commander? Am I right? Nobody remembers French Commander.
Isn't that Dual Commander?
Dual Commander.
Yeah. Yes. Dual Commander?
Yes. Yeah. It was an actual. It
still is a thing. I was made to care about it at the last Command Fest.
No way. People are still playing that?
At MagicCon, I was on the French or the Dual Commander Cup for 2 days.
Holy man.
Yeah.
So somebody still cares about it. Enough people that they made an entire competitive cup around it.
I have seen more people play French Commander than I have heard of people playing Pilot, Pendragon, Arch Enemy, and Brawl.
Combined. That's funny. I haven't honestly heard about French Commander unless I bring it up in the last 4 years. So I'm glad people are out there playing it. I'm just not seeing it. So my
French Commander,
I don't hang out with the cool kids, I guess.
For those that care, French Commander is a 1v1 format. Okay, it is essentially just like Singleton Legacy. Like it has a separate ban list, but it's kind of just It's kind of
don't
just
bring your soul ring.
Yeah, no soul ring in French Commander, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But you know what is legal in French Commander? Primeval Titan, and that's the only place my Primeval Titan Commander deck is going to work. So I might actually be building a French Commander deck soon. But
goodness gracious,
let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay. So one aspect of games of Commander that do not exist in other formats, there is no such thing as a Rule 0 for Standard or Modern or Legacy or Vintage.
Can you imagine?
There is such a thing called Rule 0 for Commander. And so one of the interesting things about Commander is an inherently broken format. All right. There's insane things to do. There's so many decks that you can just set up to win on turn 1. Okay. It is an inherently busted format, but its goal, its original goal, its roots is people hanging out and playing for fun. Like, when was the last time you heard about people playing Modern when there was nothing to win? No gems or coins or F&M promos or anything like that.
Yeah, not the go-to casual format.
Not really.
I think if you have the right crowd, I think some of them durdle on the side doing that in between waiting other things to happen.
Yeah. But
I
more
understand
than
your
not,
point.
they're practicing. They're practicing.
They're practicing
to
win. Yes, that's absolutely what's happening.
Yep. Okay, so Commander is at its core is a social interaction game with a social contract. No other format has that. And I think this is one of the things that causes some consternation with people that come in from the other formats, is because the other formats don't have to worry about a social format. They don't have to. There is no aspect of making sure everyone has a good time.
And as much as we make a big deal out of saying Magic is the gathering, and we talk about it from that perspective, even when we're talking about competitive formats, the gathering is Commander, right? It's what people want to do. They want to sit down and talk and enjoy themselves as they play, for the most part.
Okay. So we haven't defined what Rule 0 is.
Right.
Does anyone want to take a stab at it?
Rule 0, in a nutshell, is a conversation that you can have prior to your game starting, whereby you errata a part of the rules, whether it's make a card legal or talk about the fact that you may have a 5-card wish board, and ask if the other players at the table are okay with you playing the game that way.
It's also where you decide where you try and decide what type of game that you're going to have. Like, you can change the rules of the game both to allow extra cards. Like, if you really want to run your Frankie Peanuts Commander deck, all right, then you would need to Rule 0 that. If you want to do proxies, you're going to need to Rule 0 that. If you want to say, hey, no infinite combos before turn 9, that's a Rule 0. Or, I don't want to play against your
Sliver deck.
Your sliver deck. Okay, those are conversations that you have during Rule 0, and they can potentially be confrontational, because I pull out my sliver deck, and I was like, I want to play my sliver deck. And then Charles goes, I don't really want to play against slivers. Do you have anything else? And I go, no, I didn't bring anything else. And now Charles either has to, concede the point and play against slivers, or make me feel like a butt. So
yeah, it's the way you refine the social contract before you agree to sit down and play and abide by that social contract. Like, you're outlining what that social contract is so that everybody at the table can have fun through whatever means they want to come and play this particular game with you within the confines of this social contract. That's really what you're outlining here.
Now, I will add a caveat that at certain brackets like cEDH and tournament stuff, the social contract is the tournament structure. Okay, there is no need to have a conversation about what people will have fun with at the table, because the goal is not to have fun. The goal is to win, and fun is a byproduct. Yeah. All right. So there is not necessarily like, I don't want to play against slivers. You kind of walk into that knowing that the social contract is the explicit rules. All right. Yeah. Which appeals to a lot of people. Like, I don't have to, talk to other people, and I don't have to hold myself back in order for you to have a good time.
Yeah, some people recognize that they have a lot of fun in Commander because of how the rules of Commander work, but they're not fans of the social contract, in which case they go off into cEDH land and live over there in their little bubble.
Yep. And here's Brian's hot take, and this is gonna be one of many in this episode, is I believe that the people who hate the Rule 0 conversation are exactly the sort of people that make the Rule 0 conversation necessary. Outside of cEDH. If you're in cEDH, you go over there into cEDH. Like, you go in timeout over there and then
you have your own special playground to go run around in.
Yes.
You go to that dangerous playground that has the hot metal slide and everything else. Everybody over here is going to play in the safe play box.
Yep. But at an LGS, okay. So here's a suggestion. If you have a pod of people at an LGS that cannot agree, okay, or they're not getting along, what are your possible options there?
I mean, my first thing is always going to be looking around and seeing what other options are there. Like, especially if it's a casual, Commander night or Commander day where it's just like Commander free play all day sort of thing. Mm-hmm. You can look around and see, okay, are there other pods that might have been planned for a little while that we can shake things up with? Do we have, depending on the store, you might even have an employee who might want to indulge somebody in their shenanigans that nobody else seems to want to play with. So, you can look for other options outside of that particular play group if they're available.
If you're running a player list event, and what we mean by a player list event is there's no formal pairings or anything like that. You just have, there's 12 people show up, you get their, I almost said their DCI numbers, you get their codes to put in the companion app, okay, and they register, and the event doesn't have any rounds, and you just pair them all manually and go. And in that particular case, in that particular context, breaking a pod up and moving people around is a-okay hunky-dory. Okay.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Yep. If people don't get along, if there's decks that are disproportionate power level, generally speaking, folks that play at similar levels are going to gravitate towards each other. So this is a problem that when you start developing a group of people that constantly come back, they're going to gravitate to the other people who play that type of way, unless you have like the one or two pub stompers. And in that particular case, you can just pull them aside and talk to them and stuff like that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I haven't really run into situations where it's been a massive problem. I can imagine it being a problem if someone is only bringing tier 4, tier 5 deck, or bracket 4, bracket 5 decks, and everyone else is wanting to run bracket 2, bracket 3.
Yeah.
In that particular case, you should be able to just have a talk, like social pressures should be being placed on people, or just kind of a nice talk. Like if someone's winning 75% of the games in Commander, they know, that they're running hot.
All right, so you've been talking about these deck brackets and, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's segue into that and talk a bit about these new Commander brackets that Wizards put out about a year ago. So brackets were introduced by Wizards of the Coast. When was it? Like end of 2024? Sound about right? Beginning of 2025, somewhere around there?
I thought it was this year. Or no, it was like the end of last year, beginning of this year.
Yeah. End of 2024, beginning of 2025, Wizards introduced the bracket system, where effectively, based off of how you've built your deck and these things that they call game changers, which we're going to talk about in a second, you effectively can have a way of attempting to objectively assess how powerful your deck is and what kind of ranking system you want to play within. So, for example, you could have, I believe precons are set at about a power level or a bracket 2. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree that it's objective. Okay.
It's intended to be like a sort of objective way. I don't know how well it actually agrees, but
I don't think
you disagree with that?
No, I disagree. Like if you read the actual bracket, the actual definitions of the brackets, it's entirely vibe based. Like
sure.
It's a bracket 3 deck typically won't have more than 3 game changers. It won't have infinite turns. Like it's defining a vibe. Okay, as opposed to an exact restriction. And that's one of the problems, is because you can build a deck that objectively meets the milestone markers of a bracket 2 deck, but rolls at a bracket 4 level, because the vibe, you didn't follow the vibe. So it's really just signposts. Like the brackets are almost like little bumpers to help you stay in a lane, but there's really nothing stopping you from just taking that bowling ball and just whipping it across 3 or 4 lanes.
Yeah, it's more of a guideline, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, it's like the Pirates Code, right? It's more of a guideline, right?
Yeah, it gives you an idea of how you can talk about what it is you're sitting down to play, the kind of experience you're wanting to have. Like, for example, I'll just read them out. Bracket 1 is what they call exhibition. So your super casual commander deck. This is the commander deck that's like ladies wearing hats commander deck, where every art piece in the deck has a lady wearing a hat.
Or Ashling the Pilgrim in 99 Mountains.
Correct. Yeah. Something that's just like, I'm super chill. It's a thing, nothing super serious about it. They call bracket 2 the core, and they put in parentheses effectively the average current pre-constructed deck. So, okay, about precon level, power level, sure, that's That varies a little bit from time to time, but you get the idea there. Bracket 3 is upgraded, so you've taken that pre-con that you've bought and you've made some upgrades. Like Bryan just said earlier, he had an upgraded commander deck where really you just changed up some lands and didn't really do too much else beyond that, right?
No. Replace some equipment 1-for-1 and upgraded the lands.
Yep. Perfect example of a Bracket 3 upgraded vibe.
Yep.
From there, you have Bracket 4, which is considered optimized. So this is where you're going, hey, we're just going to go nuts, no real restrictions. I'm tuning up this deck and we're going to do something with this concept that's really powerful and have some fun. But then you have Bracket 5, which is almost the same thing, except you don't say we're going to have some fun. You say we're going to worry about a tournament scene and a metagame. And that's cEDH.
Note everybody's definition of fun is different.
Also true.
There are a lot of people out there who will say it's okay for a Bracket 4 deck to play with a bunch of Bracket 3s, and then when the Bracket 3s don't have any fun and the Bracket 4 player is, yeah. So I often think of 4 and 5 as being kissing cousins. They're literally the same thing, but they wanted to make a distinction in brackets because of philosophy and vibe, as Bryan says. So, pay attention to that. Just because they say it's a 4 doesn't mean that it's a 4. I think 4 depends more on the pilot than on the deck. A little bit.
I think a 4, okay, and realistically, like, opinions on the bracket systems are like belly buttons and buttholes. Everyone's got one.
Yep.
Something about stinking. So bracket 4 realistically is very, very similar in intent to bracket 5, but as Marco said, bracket 5 cares about a defined metagame. So bracket 4 is almost realistically is bracket 5 where you don't consider a metagame. You just build the deck that you want, but you're juicing it as much as possible. Bracket 5,
no holds barred still.
Yeah, it's still no holds barred. It's just suddenly I don't have to worry about RogSci or whatever, because I don't see those at my when I want to pub stomp some poor folks at the LGS. Is that RogSci? Is that a
Yep,
that's a thing.
RogSci is
thing?
Look
Okay.
at that. Bryan knows a cEDH deck.
I know, even a nickname, right?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Well done.
Yeah. Compliment me on BlueSky.
There you go.
Fucking knew a thing.
I understood that reference.
Yeah. All right. So here's a thing at the LGS level. I think most LGSs kind of want to cater to a specific bracket. Okay. The store has a particular vibe, and they might have a list. They might have a lot of clients or customers that come in and like playing bracket 4. Okay. They might have a lot of people that come in and want to play bracket 3. As a judge, okay, you want to cultivate people coming in. So if someone new comes into your store to play Commander and they are bringing their, mouse tribal precon from Bloomburrow and they're sitting down across from,
Two RogSci players and a Kenrith.
Yes. Dragon, Sliver Queen, Kenrith, that kind of thing. You kind of want to help them out without discouraging them, because you don't want them to leave discouraged. So you do kind of want to plan on having an opportunity, having a place for the lower power people to play. Okay, and that's if your store is predominantly the higher power stuff. If your store is predominantly the lower power stuff, you're going to find yourself wanting occasionally a place for the higher power people to play. And you kind of have to give them that place, because otherwise they're going to make all the other people miserable.
Yeah, and this is something that comes up in general. So I think this is something that does line up a lot with the general judging at my LGS experience, because I've had this where somebody showed up to a modern night, like it was this teenage kid and his father. Both came in, both playing decks that basically looked like they'd been drafted from the most recent set. So clearly they opened a box, built a constructed deck around whatever core mechanic they thought seemed like fun, came to the shop and were like, oh, okay, let me sign up for Friday Night Magic. Not realizing that the LGS I go to is full of sweaty spikes who absolutely are, you see a lot of them at regional championships that I'm judging a lot. And so not quite the same kind of desired experience is going to be had by these players. But when you recognize that players coming into an environment that's not necessarily set up for them, you do your best. You reach out to them, you talk to them, you engage them the best way you can, find a way to still welcome them into the shop, the typical thing that you'll do regardless. Have we talked about game changers yet?
I think we've been talking a lot about brackets, and we've probably glossed over game changers 3 times now, but we need to go into it.
Yeah, let's talk about game changers. So Wizards uses game changers in their outline for their bracket system. So under each of the brackets that they list out, they put things like no game changers in brackets 1 and 2, or 3 game changers in bracket 3, or no restrictions in brackets 4 and 5. And game changers are effectively those cards that everybody will put in their deck that are super powerful, that will have a large effect on the game. Game changers. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but for example, Cyclonic Rift is a game changer. Drannith Magistrate, that prevents your opponents from casting their commanders, is a game changer. Cards like Jessica's Will and Underworld Breach, cards that are not what I would call quote-unquote fair magic, are typically going to be on the game changer list, but even then it's not a huge number of them either. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're having that discussion with your table about how many of these game changers are we willing to allow in a bracket 3 versus a bracket 4 deck, things like that.
All right. So now let's talk about, I'll be like Captain America sitting on the chair. So you want to run a commander tournament?
No.
All right. So you've made the decision that you want to get some of that commander money. Lots of players are coming into your store and playing commander, and they're sitting at tables, and they're taking up table space and keeping it from them Warhammer players. All right. So you want to start making some dollars off of them. So you go, okay, I want to run a commander tournament. What's one of the first things that you want to ask yourself?
Why me?
Yeah, that's really, no.
Actually, why is not necessarily the wrong question there. Like,
I think the first question,
why do you want to do this?
The first question you want to ask is not only why, but it's what is my goal? What kind of an event do I want to have? I think and we talked about this before the show, and I could not agree more. And it was somebody else's point, but I've thought about this a little bit. There are a lot of stores out there, a lot of owners and TOs that have an impression that they're going to take their casual commander players and give them a tournament so that they can come in and feel like they're part of something cohesive, so that they can come in and have a fun prize, and so that they can have a great day. And I think what happens is that outcome is a little impossible to achieve if you're going at it from that direction.
As soon as you add the word tournament,
yeah,
we're not having a commander event. We're not having a commander party. We're having a commander tournament. Suddenly, winning becomes more important. Okay, so that's realistically one of the things that you want to think about, that you want to consider. When you are looking at your casual commander group sitting around on Friday night and you go, wouldn't it be great? We got a bunch of people here. What if we run a tournament of this kind of thing? Okay, you are changing by taking those exact same players and putting them in a tournament. You have changed their behavior. You are going to change their behavior.
Yeah, Skinner.
What?
Isn't Skinner the guy who did observational behavioral theory stuff?
Schrodinger?
No, Skinner behaviorism, Skinner behavioral theory. It's the kind of thing where if you observe
I have read his books.
Yeah, there you go.
He's brilliant. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah,
I think he's the one that did the study of workers, and if the workers were observed, their productivity went up, and they didn't tie initially that it was simply the observation that people were taking interest in them, that their productivity went up, type thing.
You mean observing a thing changes
a thing? Imagine that. Imagine
look
that.
at that.
Yeah, Skinner.
It's almost like every judge who's ever swooped on deck checks knows exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Right? Bringing it back to judging. All right. So you are going to want to figure out if you are looking to capture the lightning in a bottle that is your local commander LGS, free play area into a tournament setting. You need to realize that you're going to have some work cut out for you, because as soon as you start implying an incentive structure, you're going to change the outcome.
Yep.
Okay. So to that regard, I'm going to say it actually is better. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this. If you're going to run a tournament, if you've made the decision to run a tournament, bracket 4, bracket 5, cEDH makes more sense. I hate it, but
I'm sorry. Let me pick up my jaw off the floor here for a second.
I hear that the dark side has cookies. Are they tasty?
Yeah. Okay. Keep in mind. Okay. Like I still say the best. Like saying any chain that leads you to I need to run a cEDH event is pretty good indication that you've made a wrong decision somewhere much earlier in the chain, in the thought process.
There he is.
I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
Right. However, if you have had a series of decisions forced upon you, such that you have to run a commander tournament with stakes, cEDH, and to this regard, I'm just going to hand it over to Marcos and say, talk about this, because this is actually a black hole or a very empty spot in my knowledge.
That's fair. So I think what Bryan is alluding to here is that the cEDH community has made tournament commander much more of a significant thing over the last few years, to the point that there have been multiple groups and multiple TOs that have risen and fallen over the years, attempting to find a way to make this work. Because first and foremost, Bryan is 100% correct. Rules as written right now, official rules.
No, you don't have to qualify that. Just Bryan is 100% correct. End of podcast.
Rules as written, officially as set forth by Wizards, right now, running any sort of multiplayer tournament of any sort, of any format, is not very well supported. At least not without taking certain things into consideration. Like, for example, if you are abiding by judge rules and you're going to play for significant prizes, sounds like you should run this at competitive REL using the IPG. Well, if somebody gets a game loss because of something that they did in the IPG, when game losses are meant to incentivize, hey, you shouldn't do this again, but you can keep playing your match. But then you remember Commander's a best of one format. Well, now everything about how the IPG is structured is kind of broken. So, to that end, there have been multiple groups that have talked about creating rule sets for running tournaments for multiplayer formats, including Commander. I actually happen to be a member of a group called the Magic Tournament Addendum that has created an addendum specifically for multiplayer groups. This group includes a lot of former players for cEDH, tournament organizers, and judges, all of whom have been looking at Commander-run tournaments and tried to make them suck less, is the best way I can describe it.
And let me just real quick, when we talk about cEDH, okay, and the C means competitive, and unfortunately, competitive in this particular context can mean one of three different things, okay? Competitive could mean I am playing my deck competitively. Okay, I am playing my deck to win. All right. And so I am playing aggressively according to the rules because I want to win with my deck. And your deck can be any bracket level. Okay. Then there is competitive, the bracket. Okay, you are building it for a specific format, you are building it for tournaments. Then there is competitive, the rules enforcement level. Okay, yes. Which is where IPG factors in, because there are tournaments that are cEDH that run at regular rules enforcement, and there are competitive tournaments, cEDH, that run at competitive rules enforcement. Okay? Those two events play differently.
Very differently. Yeah, and this is where it starts getting a little bit a little difficult to say exactly what is correct, because it is still in the early iterative processes of trying to make, for example, the MTA, the Magic Tournament Addendum that this committee has created for cEDH, which I've used cEDH and tEDH interchangeably in this episode. tEDH is a newer name that the MTA and some other cEDH players have started to try to implement to kind of cut through that blurriness that Bryan just pointed out that comes up when you talk about cEDH. Well, do you mean competitive? Do you mean playing casually competitively? With tEDH, that is specifically tournament EDH, or tournament commander. So talking about running structured tournaments, about larger prize pools, about the typical tournament experience, that is where we typically are calling it tEDH now, or attempting to make that change.
Can I make an argument, though?
Please.
Like, regular rel FNM for standard is still a tournament. The RC is also a tournament. Like, those are both tournaments.
Yeah, that's why I just don't buy the whole we're going to rebrand it as tEDH. No shade on anybody and the work that they're doing. I think it's honestly cEDH, and we need to stop trying to rename things just because renaming things helps to clarify what is unclarifiable.
Right.
Sorry.
If you are, I'm gonna say this, and Marcus, please feel free to jump in and expound on this. Okay.
Please.
Running a cEDH tournament at regular rel is significantly easier than running with the same number of players, a cEDH event run at competitive. Because not only do you need to know all of the competitive rules and fixes and stuff like that, but you also need to know how the competitive rules don't have to be modified for cEDH or for a tournament, for a best of one multiplayer format.
Yes, that is correct. That is not to say that running a cEDH tournament in and of itself is easy. And I think this is one big thing that I've noticed a lot of over the last year is because I have gotten a lot of experience running these types of events over the past couple of years, I've had a lot of people reach out to me seeking help. And the question usually starts with, so my LGS wants to run a cEDH event. I'm the store judge. I'm now in this world. What do? Help.
Yeah. And let's just talk about some things that you're going to want to know. How long are your rounds?
So
that's not defined.
Typically not. The rule set that we like to use, the MTA, ascribes to 80-minute rounds. And you might have heard of some horrific Commander events that had finals that lasted 11 plus hours or 5.5 hours or something ludicrous like that. One of the things I'm actually really happy with in the MTA that we've added relatively recently was we now have 80-minute rounds. And then after the 80 minutes of your round is over, the head judge will call time in the round. Active player finishes their turn, and then you proceed to finish that turn out, and then at that point you are done. But if that turn that you are in takes longer than 20 minutes, it doesn't. We have put a hard cap at 20 minutes to determine a winner past the 80 minutes. And if you've not determined a winner, it is just a draw. Don't care how many more iterations you needed to go through to get to your win con. You have overall 100 minutes total, including your overtime, to just get a winner.
I love the fact that a judge could just come up and just be like, okay, you're done.
You're done. Yes.
You're done now.
It just has to happen. Like logistics of venues and things, like I need to know how long I need to be in this venue. How long does a store owner need to keep their shop open? How long is 4 rounds going to take?
I'm forever not going to understand this as a desirable thing for people to go through and gain some amount of enjoyment out of. And I'm glad people do, but An hour and
There's
40
people
minutes
that take the cinnamon challenge.
An hour and 40 minutes sitting in a pod and knowing that at the end somebody can walk up and just end my day because some Nimrod could not get off the pot. I hate it. I hate it from an outsider's perspective looking in. I hate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal, and for the longest time there was no time limit like that. And then you have really dumb situations where in Swiss rounds, when I was sitting in a match, it took a player 2.5, 3 hours to finish their final turn. And I was sitting at the match from 15 minutes before time in the round, and everything was happening. There was a lot of movement. There was no slow play. I was sitting there watching for it and expressly trying to call it out wherever I could, but it just was not happening. There was just that much stuff going on. And at some point, you just have to go, there has to be a line, and that seems to be the line that most.
I get it. I'm going to call time on
enjoy.
round on the conversation because
I want to make one comment though. I want to make one comment to Marcos. Marcos, if we're ever at an event where you are on a cEDH event and I am not, because that's just the way that's going to be, and you run into a situation where they're at the 100-minute mark and you need someone to stop those players from playing,
you can
run
call
over
me
to my
from
event
New Jersey and I'll come down and do it.
And I will come running like it's a WWE intro for summer or for Royal Rumble. I will come running down that ramp, slide under the rope into the cEDH area, and end that event. Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love that visual.
Oh, I mean,
I am
sorry.
now never getting that in my head.
End the match, not end the event. I will absolutely want to end the event, but. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the match, please. We got more stuff to do.
Now, for these things, there are different pieces of software that can run, and some of this software is free. And we're talking about cEDH, where you have to worry about match points and if draws are worth anything, that kind of stuff. If you're looking to just run a casual Commander tournament at your LGS, and they are not interested in paying money for extra software or getting players to learn this kind of stuff, how do you run these events using Event Link and Companion?
I mean, just standard, either do the note card method where you're kind of figuring it out on your own, or the easier option, just use Event Link and then just say, okay, it's a 1v1 match, but then tables 1 and 2, you're a pod. Tables 3 and 4, you're a pod.
Right.
Go.
It's just pair everybody like 1v1 and then pair manually. Especially if it's 1 round or 2 rounds. If it's 2 rounds, it's very easy because Event Link will try and pair people with similar points together. So you're going to have like in the table 1, table 2, that's a pod. Okay. You're going to have one player that won 1-0 and another table that got 0-0. So out of those 4 players, only one player won. And so they're going to be paired against other players with 1 point. All right. And then the zeros will all be paired together. And it's very unlikely that those same 3 players will be paired up against each other. So you can do that. Now, Marcos, you mentioned a note card method. Can you elaborate on what that is? Because running events off of note cards is not something very common anymore. Judges might not know what that is.
No. So they're effectively, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. I think you can modify the way that you would normally do it for 1v1. But in 1v1, in the past, it's just been you have a note card for each player and you note out who they played against each round and kind of keep track of things that way and use those note cards to manually put 2 people together. Okay, you 2 are playing, you 2 are playing, you 2 are playing because you've never played before. With cEDH, it can be a little easier because, again, there's one winner. You know everybody who was in a pod beforehand, so make sure those 3 are not in the same pod. And you do that enough, and you should make it
Hang
work.
on. What I wanted to say real quick is you write down everyone's name on a note card, okay, or an Excel spreadsheet if you're feeling particularly brave, okay. When they win, they let you know, and then you have a little section on that card where you're adding up the sum number total of points. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then when you're pairing the next round, you just take your note cards and divide them up into piles of the points. Yep. Okay, and so all the threes, you've got at the end of round one, you have a pile of threes, maybe a pile of ones, and then a pile of zeros. Okay, and then you just match them manually that way, using those note cards to form your pairs. And as you put two cards together, you look and see if they've played each other, and if they have, just grab another note card and go. And that's the way you do that. And with 4 players, it's kind of the same thing. It is going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt because it's a little bit more writing, but realistically, your cEDH tournament that you're running at an LGS store where you don't have, there's a lot of like conditions to get you into the spot. Your tournament's not going to be that big. Probably 2, maybe 3 rounds you can deal.
Yeah. And on top of that, one thing with cEDH tournaments is typically you will have a number of pods that are not going to result in a winner. You're just going to have them draw out, and that's all it can be, and they move on. So your pile of 1-pointers is going to be a little bit bigger than your pile of 3-pointers, or in cEDH it'd be 5-pointers for a win, but same difference for a smaller event. Doesn't really make a difference for a smaller event.
So let's talk about this. I have 10 players. Okay, 10 players for my EDH tournament. How do you break that up? It's 2 pods of 5, 1 pod of 4, and 2 pods of 3.
1 pod of 4, 2 pods of 3. So with Tournament Commander, because of how long Commander turns can take, and the fact that you have hopefully a preset time limit on how long this round is going to take, you don't want to introduce a 5th player, because then that's just taking so much extra time away from all the other players. So the ideal is usually put 2 3-player pods and a 4-player pod. That gets you your full 10 people. Yes, are some players going to be a little unhappy that they're playing in a 3-player pod because their commander deck is designed to win against 3 opponents? Yes, that'll happen. Wah, play a different deck. Sorry, this is just what we have to do, because the alternative is like starting to give buys out in these, and especially with the point structure in cEDH, buys are just not fun.
In environments where you play with buys.
Yeah.
Okay. In a single 1-round event, 5 players
makes
are
no
fine.
sense.
Yeah. Well, no. If you're only playing a 1-round event and you've got 10 people, 2 pods of 5 is fine.
As long as everybody is on board with it, and realistically, as long as you have the time to have, maybe you decide to pad on an extra 20 minutes because you have a 5th player there.
Sure. What I'm
80
getting
minutes
at,
divided by 4 is 20 minutes per player on average. So yeah, make it a 100-minute round and you're good.
What I'm saying is generally speaking, 3 players is better than 5 players. But okay, if it's a single round event, 5 is okay-ish. Definitely not if there's a time limit and you have to consider leaving or closing at a time remotely close to when the event ends. Another thing to consider if you're going to do a tournament is, as Marcos was talking about, how long the rounds are, is not just your start time, but your end time. Mm-hmm. Okay, there was one of the conversations that I had at the latest Command Fest where they wanted to have a commander tournament was we kept getting into arguments with the TO because they wanted to add players that were going to add a round. And I was like, this event is already like starting early and it's going to go to the very end of it could very well potentially, if we add this extra round, go past hall closure. Is that what you want to do?
Right. Because try picking up a commander game in the middle of a very intricate board state and be like, hey, y'all, we need to move this to Denny's. That's not going to work.
Right. And if it's your LGS store and you're planning on having this tournament start at 7 and you are planning on 3 rounds and rounds take 100 minutes, that's going to be, the tournament is going to be ending at midnight, if not later. What time does your store close? 11? Okay. Yeah, so
better be ready to pay some overtime.
Yeah, right. Don't just, when you're trying to figure out a tournament, an LGS or whatever, don't just look at the time you want to start. Look at the time you think you're going to end.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
And there's I'll just touch on 1 or 2 other small logistical things. Obviously, this whole discussion of how you set up your first cEDH event could probably be its own episode and might be down the line. But One of the things you want to keep in mind is, for example, how does your play space divide out into 4 when you're trying to do pods instead of seating players into pairs of 2? Do you have rows that would seat normally 10 players in them somehow, and now that just doesn't work and you're leaving a whole bunch of empty table space there? Do you need to rearrange your store? Something to consider. Start time is also a huge thing in there. The earlier you start a cEDH event, the better for everybody to be able to get back to their normal lives and see their loved ones. It's just important. Table numbers, I've also found historically have been kind of difficult to manage during cEDH events, because your normal table tent that has like a number 1 on one side and a number 2 on the other side are usually going to either be knocked around or moved around or something, and it's just awkward to look at. I personally really love lay flat table numbers where you just like print out something and go, this is pod number 1, and seat it in the middle so that everybody can just put their playmats over it, put their commanders on top of it, and forget it.
Consider this, okay, and this is something that might not, Marcos touched on it a little bit, but if I've got a table tent that's table 1, table 2, okay, and the players sit there, that thing is going to be right there in the middle. And the players that are diagonal from each other, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to pick that table tent up and they're going to move it to the end. Okay?
Yep.
And that is going to be something that you are, as an LGS judge, and I realize Marcos keeps talking cEDH larger tournaments and I keep trying to talk LGS stuff. But in this particular regard, players are going to move that table tent. Okay, so what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to say, if you are using software that does pod numbers, you want to label your table numbers based on pods. If you are using software that does by table numbers, you're going to want to put your table tents up based on table number and just accept the fact that players are going to move your stuff around, and then you're going to have to fix it in between rounds.
Yep, just something to think about.
Yep, just a thing. Also, something that's kind of interesting is I think some of the cEDH tournament software actually has like seat 1 is the player that goes first, whereas at an LGS store you might have to do some rolling to determine who wins.
Yeah, and some of these players who are into cEDH might have expectations where they'd want to clarify, wait, do we roll or does the seat 1 go first? And just be prepared to answer that.
All right.
Also, one last thing, because this one is actually kind of important, especially for your smaller LGSs. So we talked about having 100-minute rounds here, and Charles made a very good point. You might feel pretty miserable being forced to sit down at a pod for 100 minutes, especially if you're the person who tries to combo off and gets your Thassa's Oracle combo counterspelled 10 minutes into the round, and you're effectively knocked out 10 minutes into the round. Well, now you can either sit at your seat and just watch the game continue on, or you might want to mosey around and view some cards. Well, what happens when half of the event is kicked out of their pods, or a few pods have finished, and now everybody's just up and wandering around the store? It can fill up your play space and your store space really, really fast. So have an idea on what you might want to do with that many people walking around and not having a place to seat themselves. It's a little different from your typical F&M where everybody's mostly sitting down for the majority of their time, and there's not that much turnaround between when they finish their match and when they start their next one. I think that's all I got on that.
Yep. All right. Cool. So is proxies next? All right.
Oh, yeah. Now time for Bryan to speak, and I will just sit back and listen.
No. This is going to be okay.
Well, proxies are a good topic for BPRIL, but the only thing I want to say about proxies is, before he gets into it too much, is depending on how your tournament is organized behind the scenes depends on whether or not it's even a discussion in a store setting. If it is a sanctioned tournament, you can't run proxies. BPRIL, take it away.
Okay. I'm going to start with a few caveats. Caveat number 1, counterfeits are not proxies. There is no such thing as an ethical counterfeit. All right. If you have bought counterfeit cards, if you pride yourself on how difficult your proxies are to tell apart from the real thing, you are a bad person. Counterfeits exist to deceive. Eventually, those cards are going to end up in the general population, and that's overall a bad thing. You're a bad person. Full stop. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I hope that that's not controversial.
I hope not. Some people might find it that way, but I'm not really that interested in debating it. So
Yeah. There is no such thing as an ethical counterfeit.
yeah.
Okay. All right. If you are at your particular store at an LGS playing casually proxy up, it is a little problematic if you proxy the whole deck, I feel, because you are going to a store that makes money from selling cards. Okay? If you are not, you should be spending money at that LGS in some form other than buying cards, or like I guess that's kind of
Support
the
your
point.
local game store.
If you go to your local game store and all you're doing is proxying up and buying your cards off a TCG player and not spending any money in the store, I think that's kind of tacky. Okay, and
Agreed.
buying a couple of sodas and like a honey bun every 2 weeks, doesn't keep the lights on. That kind of thing. I do typically, and this was a conversation that I said a little bit earlier. I do think the biggest argument against proxies are the people who are militantly pro proxy. I'm not going to really expand upon that, but the people the people that are like, if you do not like proxies, then you are actively harming the game. And go sit down, go touch some grass. Proxies are fine for tournaments that allow proxy. Like if a tournament allows proxies, great, allows them. However, you shouldn't get mad if a tournament does not allow proxies. Like, disallowing proxies is the default. All right.
Yeah.
If you want to play with fake cards, be prepared to win fake dollars. Like, that's just kind of the thing. Like, I don't know if that's just kind of the stance. But if the TO allows it, cool. If the TO doesn't allow it because Wizards doesn't allow it, and they're trying to play nice with Wizards because they want the sponsorship and they want that kind of stuff, which helps make their events cheaper and gives you more support and better run, then that's the thing. People who actively
That's
think
business.
that, yeah, that's the business aspect of it. And realistically, the store, the TO, they're not getting that $200 million of Final Fantasy money, right?
Nope.
They don't take part in that. So it's not like you're sticking it to Wizards by printing cards. You're kind of sticking it to the LGSs that are trying to run good tournaments. So if they've made it into their business model, great. One thing that I don't particularly like about proxies in the L0 conversation is finding out that someone is playing proxies on like turn 3, turn 4. Like that is a conversation that should be had up front. And if you have proxies, you should be prepared for people to say, I don't think so, or I don't like that. And that should be fine. Like, people say like normalize proxies, also normalize being told no. Like those both of those things are equally valid. Okay. Off soapbox.
Yeah,
we're gonna get hate mail for that.
I'll back you up a little bit here, because I do believe that a lot of people have taken the whole "we will allow you to proxy your deck entirely" a little too close to heart and made it more of an expectation and a demand, as opposed to being thankful for that sort of accommodation on a one-time basis.
Right.
Because like some of these TOs who've been running cEDH events, they would run, one big cEDH event every few months, and that was it. Like, it's not like you're regularly able to play with proxies everywhere else. And they're the ones who kind of started this whole, allow a certain number of proxies in there, other than like, the random LGS that was running, 10 proxy vintage or something like that, because not everybody can afford a Black Lotus. Here we're talking about like some people want to proxy up certain lands that come in Commander precons, and it's like, do you really need to do that? I understand the financial discussions, and I'm never going to tell somebody that they should be priced out of playing the game they love. In fact, I kind of loathe that Magic has kind of taken that route over the last 5 to 10 years in general. But it is a business, and I understand it. I just don't want people to walk around with the entitlement that they are owed the ability to play with proxies just because other people do.
Right. And one thing that's kind of interesting is a lot of the argument is, and this is I don't want this to turn into Bryan proxy rant, but
No.
the argument of, if I can't proxy, then I can't play the game. All right. The game is not Gaia's Cradle. The game is not Bayou. The game is not whatever other expensive card is out there. There's 30,000, 40,000 game pieces. No one is preventing you from playing the game.
Yeah. And one last point, and then we'll kind of put this topic to bed as well. The idea of going into an LGS and not supporting them. Like, if an LGS is kind enough to allow you a space where you can play and have fun with proxies, please, for the love of all that is holy, have a plan to turn that proxy deck into a real deck with cards you've picked up, at least a significant portion of them from that LGS that has allowed you to have fun with that deck before you actually owned that deck. Please and thank you. That's just my personal plea to everybody. Like, have a plan to turn that deck into a real deck. Doesn't have to be right away. Doesn't have to be tomorrow. Doesn't have to be in 3 months. However long it needs to take for it to be reasonable and fair to you. But support your LGSs, support your stores, because they're the ones who are allowing this to happen. They're the ones who are paying the judges that are here to help you with this stuff. They're the ones who are supporting your Magic community.
Yep.
Support your stores.
And that 2 cans of Coke Zero and that 1 Slim Jim, that doesn't cut it.
Doesn't cut it, bud.
All right. Okay. So a few other things. We've all read horror stories, jumping off of proxies. We all had horror stories about TOs imposing crazy house rules and ban lists on Commander. What's our take on those if you're the judge at those stores?
Sign up for your own level of lunacy that you're willing to participate in.
Yeah. Realistically, like all these crazy ban lists, what that typically means is someone lost to a particular card and they got irritated, so they wanted to create like a ban list. Just say no. Like, if a card's legit and if a player is particularly being extremely oppressive, then just talk to that player. Fix it at an individual level. Don't create like a crazy ban list. You are allowed, okay? And if you want to have a night of Commander where it's like, hey, this is Typal night. This is bring your best Typal deck for Typal Commander night, or something along those lines. That's fine as like a one-time special kind of thing. But coming up with a lot, or maybe doing like a league where you get points for doing things. Okay, that's fine. That's cool also. There's been people that have had success with that, but you also, in order for your event and your store to grow, you want your events to be successful. One really cool thing that WotC has done with these various Commander parties is they've put out these little cards and these little sheets where you get points for doing things. And then once you do enough of these things in a particular order, you get maybe a promo or a bonus or something along those lines. And on those sheets, almost always are things that most Commander decks want to do anyway. Yeah. Okay. And what that means is you don't have to bring a special Commander deck for your Aether Drift racetrack deck or your Final Fantasy Chocobo Hunt
racing
thing. Yeah. You don't have to do anything special. You can just bring your regular old Commander deck. So if you're going to do something special like that, make sure you tailor it. Use those WotC examples as something you can do, and base your points on things that decks want to do anyway.
Yeah. What else we got? Oh, this is a funny one. So I'm curious, how do you all handle the people who want to come in and the way they find their joy, the way they find their fun in Commander is by making everyone else miserable?
Okay. So it kind of depends on how they are trying to make people miserable. Are they making people miserable in the sense that all of their cards are in a foreign language with alternate art, and so
I
everyone has
hadn't
to
even
constantly
considered that.
okay? Or are they playing knowledge pool and all those red enchantments that put spells into exile when you cast things, or shared fate, or those kind of things? Is that what you're talking about?
Anybody who wants to, like, so is somebody who comes in with the express purpose of, I'm the only one who is going to be having fun, whether that's like the pub stompers you were talking about earlier that like to just demolish everybody at the table, or it could just be like, I'm going to do these little things to annoy everybody because these are the things that I like, and
Okay.
don't really care about the social contract, I think.
So in a tournament setting where prizes are on the line, fine. There's nothing wrong with being, that jerk. Hate to say it, but if the goal is to win and they're winning in an aggressive way, like, the fact that you're running a tournament kind of sort of means that there's no hold bars. If this is just casual F&M commander free play, there's a player that's doing that kind of thing. It's fine to talk to them and say like, hey, I need you to tone it down. You're costing me customers. And a lot of times, generally speaking, players are going to understand that when you call out the fact. Now, obviously, you're going to want to be less confrontational, but there is going to be some sort of confrontation where you're just going to have to sit down and be like, hey, I notice you've been playing this kind of deck. Have you noticed when you're playing that the people that you're playing against are checking their phones, they're not really paying attention, they're scooping early? Yeah, they're not having, that's kind of like a sign that people aren't having fun. And we want people to come into the store and play to have fun. And if they can't have fun, then they're going to go elsewhere. So what I'd really like to have happen is if you could, find a deck that you can still have fun with and you can still enjoy, that maybe doesn't get its fun and get its enjoyment from taking fun and enjoyment away from others. Or something along those lines. I think that was kind of just like off the cuff.
Sure. What about those ones who like to show off their blingy foreign language cards and just make it impossible for anybody to read their cards or know what they're doing?
Bring the Oracle text.
Yep.
Like,
have your phone, have it ready.
Yeah.
I found especially some players are actually kind of willing to bring along English traditional copies of some of those cards, depending on how many they have. If they have their entire deck in a different language and are doing that just to be obnoxious, there's not much you could do about that. But
that seems like an established commander grinder kind of thing, as opposed to like an LGS thing, right? Okay.
100%. Whereas, and even though the commander grinders, though, if they have a few cards that they really love the art and it's in a foreign language that is not easy to grok, then they will have, I have a English version of the card over here in my deck box, etc., for you to see if you need to get the Oracle text from the card or whatever it might be. Some players are cool with that. Some players aren't. Do your best to support that just like you would any other situation, but.
One thing that if you're not necessarily looking to have a cEDH tournament, Charles mentioned this a little bit earlier, and we've done this at Command Fest too, having like a pre-con night is actually kind of cool and kind of successful, where it's everyone brings an unmodified pre-con,
or even just pays the entry fee and is given it as part of the as part of the thing, and they give you 30 minutes to sleeve up at the beginning, however you do it.
Right. Something that we do at the Command Fest is if the commander decks are 4 to a case, we just, everyone pays X amount, we pop open the case of 4, we hand everybody a random one out of there and shuffle up and go.
Yep.
And that's kind of cool. People like those a lot, especially if there's one that's super valuable compared to the others. But yeah, that can be a lot of fun and can get a lot of people in, especially with one of the new popular sets. So Not so much for when there's only like 2 commander decks, like with Edge of Eternity, there's only 2. You can't do that so good. But with Final Fantasy, if people had the infinite dollars to spend to get the commander decks.
Well, I've had stores also run it based upon what they had back in stock. They just take a whole bunch of things, and you can do it any way you want to. It doesn't have to be set based upon the current set. I mean, it's great when they've got 4 different commander decks. That's cool. But Spider-Man doesn't have any, and I don't think Avatar will either, apparently, or some kind of thing, maybe. We'll find out.
No, they have the Avatar that they just talked about today is going to have Jumpstart. Did I see that? They're going to have Jumpstart packs?
I heard Jumpstart, but I didn't hear anything about Commander, and I kind of have a feeling that we're not getting them for 2 sets, which is fine because there's a lot of product.
Commander cards?
There's a lot of
We really don't.
No. Okay.
I was about to go off on a rant on that, but never mind. Episode's long enough.
Much like a Commander game. Okay, so we're at the 100-minute mark. Okay.
I think it's time to call
We're coming up on the 100-minute mark. This episode needs to end.
Somebody's going to Cyclonic Rift, and we're going to start all over again. I just know it.
Not me. I am not that human.
So is that it then? Did we cover everything?
I think so. Everything we're going to cover today. Obviously, there's way more we could in the future, but give us some feedback on this episode and let us know what else you might want to hear, or if we didn't touch on something that you would want to hear.
Yeah, that's just it. Commander's such a broad and diverse topic. I mean, we could do an episode on special interactions. We could do an episode on actually running a cEDH tournament, because I think we dipped our toe into it here, but I don't think we really got into the nitty gritty of a bunch of it. We could do 3 or 4 easy tangential episodes, but is there a market for it? Do people want that? Is that necessary? I don't know.
Oh, that is one thing. Just where you were talking about cEDH tournaments, completely forgot. Okay, whenever there is a judge call, okay, there's going to be 4 people talking as opposed to 2 people talking. You want to check in with everybody at the table to confirm what you are being told, because everyone could have potentially different perspectives. And if the stack is super complicated, like, it's not uncommon for like there to be a 5-minute chat about just what's going on.
Right. Before you even get to the point where you actually grok what's fully happening, you're going to spend some time piecing it all together.
Right. So just take that into consideration. It's expected that you can get lost in the conversations. That's no shade on you. These people have been playing this game, watching the board state evolve over 40-50 minutes, and you are coming in there and they're just, I did this and this, and then this sacrifice, and this went to the graveyard, and this, and then this thing that we did last turn becomes relevant now, and you're just like, whoa, slow down. And then obviously one of those players is the one with all their cards in the foreign language all foiled out, and you're just like, I don't know what any of this stuff is, and there's secret layers, and
yeah. I will say Tournament Commander is the most skill testing judge format that you can work nowadays, I believe. You have to handle so many more people, so many more card interactions, so many more intricate board states, so many more different perspectives on investigations. The logistics are amped up to 11 and then some. The time investment is a lot. I mean, it is just, if you want to judge on hard mode, go judge some tournament cEDH.
Yeah. And so I want to riff on that for 2 seconds, and this will be, I guess, my closing thought on this. And it's a combination of what you just said and what B. Pearl just said and what I said at the very beginning when I was describing where I am in my Commander journey personally. If your store has come to you and you're the store judge and they say, hey, we want to run one of these wonderful events, and you don't feel up to the task or it's not your bag, you don't have to sit there and say, okay, I'll judge it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Don't feel that you're boxed into it. If you fall into it and you happen to enjoy it, great. That's cool. Love that for you. But never feel obligated to judge something that is outside of your either comfort level or interest. Either of those things, both of those things should be at least some part of why you're doing the thing that you're doing. And if you're not enjoying it, then others are going to, feel that, and people aren't going to have a good time. Hey, that's great. I ended it on a downer. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's a thing. It's a choice.
All right, that's our episode. Join us next time as we talk about something. To be determined. I'm no longer promising layers. We'll get to that eventually, I swear. Until then, you can send us an email at judgecast@gmail.com or like us on Facebook, follow us on BlueSky at judgecast.bsky.social, and on Twitter at JudgeCast. Don't forget to check out our show notes for these links and more, including our YouTube channel, where you can find this podcast and our L1 Essentials series. While you're at it, hop onto our Discord server for judges new and old, fans, and anyone who supports the judging community. I'm Charles Feather, and I keep it fair.
I'm Marcos Sanchez, and I keep it fun.
I'm Bryan Perlman, and I absolutely promise you a Layers episode.
Eventually. Jinx, Yomiko.